Hi, welcome to Playing in Traffic. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming and listening today.
This is episode 11.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Episode 11. You guys, today we have a very, very special guest. She's our new friend,
Yay.
our new dear friend that, lives kind of far from us, but we connected on the interwebs. We connected on the interwebs and we met, and she is also a former member of the church that I went to, and shares a lot of experiences. And actually, she did some YouTube videos that I watched when I was coming out, and her videos were really, really helpful, so helpful. So we're going to talk to her about that. And so everybody, welcome Kelsey.
Hi, Kelsey.
Hello.
Hi,
I'm so excited to talk to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time to do this with us today. So, Kelsey, if you want to just take a minute and kind of explain an overview of your experience in the church.
Kelsey, are you in Oregon?
Well, I'm near Oregon.
Okay.
I always say I'm from Portland, but I'm actually in Washington. I live in a city called Vancouver.
Oh, cool.
So I say Portland because most people think Canada if I say Vancouver.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Is that where you were baptized?
No, I was baptized in Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah.
How far is that?
I had from Vancouver, it's about two and a half hours away, depending on traffic. So not too far.
Do they have a big church in Seattle?
Now they do. At the time when I was baptized, it was a really small house church. I think there were like 7 or 8 of us at the time. I got baptized in a bathtub.
Well, I did too.
Oh, really?
Did you think it was weird?
Well, I was 18. I had just turned 18 when I got baptized. So for me, it was like I don't know. It should, like, looking back, like, it should have been weird to me, but I think I was just like, okay, I'll get baptized.
I know.
I kind of went along with it.
It's so true. I think when we're young like that, it's like, oh, this is so cool. It's almost like exciting because it's different, and you feel like you're like, on the verge of finding something different or new or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I had like, and the reason why I was in Seattle is because I had just started school. I went to the University of Washington, so I just started school, and within like a week or two of moving there, and I knew nobody in Seattle, absolutely nobody. And so like, I had been wanting to go to a church, or not necessarily go to a church, but to do a Bible study. And it seemed like everything around me, like, for some reason, you had to like pay to do a Bible study. And so, but these were the first people that they, like, my computer had broke, so I was, coming back from the library late at night, and people from the church came up to me and were like, have you ever heard of God the Mother in the Bible? And I was like, oh no, I never heard of that. And they showed me a couple of verses in the Bible, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. And then we exchanged numbers, and they gave me a call, and they said our church is in Linwood, and I had no idea. I'd never even heard of Linwood before. So like literally the next day, I got into a car with complete strangers to a city I'd like never heard of, to a church that's in a house, which I had never even heard of the concept of house church at the time.
Right.
And and got baptized that day.
I miss being 18 and making bad choices like that.
Right.
Looking back now, I was like,
18-year-olds
like, there were so many things that when I was a member that I just went along with, that now I'm just like, oh my God. Like when I was 18, when I was 19, I got on a plane to go to South Korea by myself with no contact information at all. And this was before, like, smartphones that can hook up to Wi-Fi.
Right.
And so, like, I literally, 19 years old, got on a plane. Because I as soon as I got to the airport, I asked the deaconess, I said, okay, what's the number for, the missionary? And I knew that was going to be there. And she's like, oh, I don't have it. So I was like, okay. So he's got on a plane, and when you fly to another country, you have to fill out the customs form, and it asks you where are you staying. So I just like literally took out the church magazine and and just wrote down the address that was on the back of that.
I think that's
Yeah.
what we all did because we had no idea where we're going, who we're going to be with. We didn't know anything. We're just going.
Yeah, and like that time, that was when like I think North Korea was up to something at that time. And so like I don't remember what they were up. I think they had sunk a ship or something like that, South Korean ship or something like that. It was back in 2009, so it would have been like, whatever happened that year. But so I remember like I had called my dad and I asked him, I was like, hey, can I have like $1,200 to go to South Korea?
Wow.
And he's like, absolutely not. He's like, I don't know what's going on over there. And I was like, fine, I'll get the money myself. And I did. And
you did. Yep. I told you, people get the money to go. It doesn't matter.
You find a way.
You find a way.
Yeah, because like the opportunity to go to South Korea, because like people want to go to South Korea because they, there's a woman there that everybody believes is God, and so like they will do anything to go. Because like towards the end, like the time when I was like leaving, it wasn't like so much you sign up to go to Korea, it was you get chosen to go to Korea.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so but when I was 18, 19 years old, it was you sign up. And when I was 19 was the second time I'd gone to Korea. And the reason I was able to go so quickly after my first time was because that was for university students, and at that time I was the only university student in my church. And people were like signing up for school to be able to go to Korea. Like that's the extent that they went to.
So like they would sign up to become a student just so they could say they were a student to go to Korea.
Yeah.
I believe it. Did you stay?
Sign up for community college. Yes, I did.
You did. Oh, good. Did you graduate?
Yes, I didn't go to my graduation because it was on a Saturday, but I definitely did graduate. But it was an extreme struggle.
Did they shame you about that, or was that okay?
No, they didn't. I wasn't. So I think part of the reason, because I know it's a mixed thing for different people. I know that some folks that they definitely, tried to get them to quit school on their own. But for me, I didn't really experience that because I think around the time I was in school, there were a lot of like, how do I say, like university missions. Like that was when that's when they were like, I remember there was one year, I think it was 2009, because I went to school from 2007 to 2011. And I think in like 2009 is when they had like, they were having us like one summer, they were having us preach on university campuses. And they had like, and I don't know if it was just a Seattle thing. I don't think it was. Because they were opening up, I forgot what they're called now. They're not called Bible centers. They were called, I don't remember what they were called, but they were opening up like places on university campuses for Bible study.
Yep, we did that also. We did that also in this side of the country. And it was also around that time. So I feel like that's probably why they didn't want you to stop school, because they probably used you for like their Bible study groups, right?
Because in order to have something like that on a campus, you have to have active students who are, attending the university and part of that.
Right.
And so like I remember, because like to even set up a club, I think we had to have like 5 university students at my school, and just to keep the 5 was like, oh my gosh. And I was one of the 5.
Wow.
It was a struggle. So they needed they needed people in a university enrolled and active to be able to set up a club, so that they can set up a booth, so that they can have a designated location.
It makes me so mad. It makes me so mad because those kids are so young.
Yeah.
And we were in there. We're like, come to our Bible group. But really, our whole intention was to, get them baptized and make them gospel workers.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, that's one of the things that I'm hoping to do within the next couple of years, is I want to set something up to where create some kind of program to educate new college age kids, because I mean the thing is like it doesn't seem like a cult until you're there and you're already wrapped up in it. And when you're wrapped up in it, you don't even care that it's a cult.
Yeah.
Like with the church, like they told us all the time, like, you know, oh, people call us a cult. It's okay. Like Jesus was called a cult leader 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
So it's like, so who cares? They're like, if they're like, Christianity can be considered a cult, and it's like that's a hard thing to I mean, they're right. Christianity can seem like a cult.
Yeah.
But
That's why, do you think that's why we hate that word? Because they would say stuff like that over and over and over again?
well, for me, I don't think I necessarily hated the word cult. Like, I really didn't care when people said, "Oh, you're in a cult." Like, I really didn't care.
Yeah.
But now being out of it,
Yes.
and it's the impact of being, it's the psychological effects of being in a cult that now bother me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, like, you don't realize it when you're in, and I don't even think I realized it fully when I had just left. But now, you know, I left in 2017. And so now, you know, 4 years later, like, I definitely see how damaging cults really are, and high demand groups like this one really is.
Right.
Yeah, and they're kind of sneaky. I mean, like the big ones that everyone knows about, it's like, how could anyone ever get involved in this? But like this church is so sneaky because other than like the very, very beginning, like glaring, like God is mother, there's like some differences along the way, but like it doesn't, you don't realize what's happening to you. Like it's so subtle, so subtle.
It
and
seems
slow.
like
Yeah.
a regular non-denomination church.
Well, and also how they phrase stuff is like, it sounds so common sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's what got me, because I didn't have a background in going to church. Like, I had gone to church a couple of times when I was a kid, but like not like consistently enough. Like, I mean, we didn't have a Bible or anything in our house, or we never did Bible study, anything like that. So for me, when they had said, "Have you heard of God the Mother?" and then they started, you know, giving, you know, the classic explanation, you know, like everything on earth has, you know, a father and a mother, then wouldn't it make sense that there exists, you know, a God the Father and God the Mother? And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like, and they always, in their studies, they always had like everyday common sense examples to relate stuff to. So for me, I'm like, okay, that makes so much sense. And so, and that is what really like kept me, or that's really what, you know, grabbed me, and what kept me was like, you know, nobody else, no other church explains stuff as simply as this one. So that's like, so in my head, even though there were some times, you know, within my time in the church that I wanted to leave, I'm like, okay, well, where do I go? Because there's no other church that like, you know, teaches, you know, we need to keep the Sabbath, we need to keep the Passover. There's no other church that does that. So it's like, you know, even though I'm not having a great time here, I'm having an awful time. Where else there's something in my head. I'm like, there's something wrong with me, because this is where I'm supposed to be.
So you said when you got to school, like before you joined, that you were kind of already looking for a study group or a Bible study?
Yeah, because like I was interested when I was in high school. I was interested in religions. I mean, my high school was a public high school, but it definitely, they had some classes that you, not necessarily religion classes, but it exposed you to like other cultures. And I always thought, I just loved studying about religions at that time. So I had, you know, when I went to, but the one religion I didn't know anything about was Christianity.
Okay.
Like I knew a ton of stuff about Islam, Buddhism, even the Baha'i church. Like I knew like a ton of stuff about other religions, but I didn't know anything about Christianity. I was like, I really want to do Bible study. But again, like I wasn't like actively searching for anything. It's just something that I wanted to do. And so like whenever I would see like a flyer on campus or something like that, like for some reason, like the ones that I saw were like charging, which I thought was really weird. And this was the first one that just happened to approach me and was like, you know, do you want to do Bible study? And I was like, yeah, sure. And not only that, but to me, it made, what they were saying made common sense.
Yeah.
And so that's what kind of like just roped me in.
And they were so sweet.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're overly sweet.
That
overly.
love bombing is for real.
Yeah, especially in the church. And Yeah, I mean, they say you have to show mother's love.
Yes.
Mother's love is love bombing.
Yes.
When I lived with Tony, she used to have a picture of mother hanging in our hallway together. And every
Oh my
time she'd
gosh.
walk by it, she'd just be like, "Oh, she's so beautiful." And I was like, "Tony, she's just some weird lady, a weird."
Yeah, but if you believe that that's God,
Yeah.
a picture of God in your house, it'd be just like somebody
Yeah.
having a picture of Jesus
It
in their
was
house.
weird. It was like we just had this photo, and Tony would just gaze at it, and I'm like,
Hold
"She's
on,
a
I just want to say,
stranger."
time out though,
Sorry.
like, congratulations on graduating college, because that is really, really awesome.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people, in these groups are able
No.
to do that.
Yeah.
Most of them are pulled out, and
Yeah.
then, I'm sure that I know that it was definitely hard when you came out, but that might have been helpful when you came out to at least have a degree,
Yes. Yes. I
like
would not
something
have
to
the
fall
job I
back
have
on.
today without. Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Because that gave me something to fall back on. Because I mean, I've definitely seen where the churches, convince people to leave school. But I've also seen where people, more often I see when people take themselves out of school to do
Mhm.
more for the gospel.
Right. It's
Yeah.
not really the church asking you to do it. You just automatically want to because you're like, oh my God, Father's coming soon. There's no time for this.
Yeah, and like I had a overseer who would say things like, at the end of the day, did you accomplish your mission for today? Or they
Mm-hmm.
would say things like, if Father came tonight, would you be going to heaven based on what you did today? Stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And so like you feel like compelled to spend every single free moment doing the church work, because if God came down that day, if that day is the last day, then you want to be caught doing something for the gospel.
For sure. They said that
Which
all the
which
time.
when you compare to the dog, one thing that always like kind of when they said stuff like that, I always thought, because they taught us that before the end, mother would say no more preaching.
Mm.
Right? So
Right.
so I always thought like, oh, you'd have a little bit of a heads up because she has to say that first.
Right. Or
And
like
so
it is done, or like it is finished.
yeah.
She would tell
Yeah.
you guys to stop. Is that part of like Revelations? Is that?
I think so.
I feel like I've heard that in Christianity. I mean, that's like
Well,
common.
that one had
Well,
to do from the tabernacle, the Feast of Tabernacles, and like when Moses was, telling all the Israelites, like, you can come and bring all these free will offerings to build up the tabernacle, but it got to a point where there were too many offerings, and
Oh.
Moses said, no more, right? And then that they say that's a prophecy to explain, us bringing the spiritual materials, which are the brothers and sisters, the recruits, and to build up the spiritual temple. But eventually there'll be a time where there's more than enough, and mother will say no more preaching.
but they were saying that about 2012.
I was
Is
gonna
what
say,
my understanding
in
was.
2012, did they kind of allude to that, or what, did they ever say that?
Well, that was the whole
Well,
point. It was supposed to be done by 2012. Was
Oh.
that what your
yeah.
understanding was? Yeah.
Well, my understanding was end of 2012, but the thing is like the closer it got to 2012, the less they talked about 2012.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, but I will say this, because I had only heard the 2012 prophecy once, and I believe I heard it like either end of 2009 or early 2010. And those kind of like studies, they didn't let us, at least in my Zion, they didn't let us take notes for those. And so, and I believe, because they always said like the reason you can't take notes is notes could get in the hands of the wrong person, and then Satan will use those notes against father, mother, and something like that. But
Yep.
now it's like evidence. That's why.
Right.
But
That's right.
Wow.
We were told
yeah.
so many times, like, probably we could take notes and then we would, like, have to destroy them. Like, we'd have a big group meeting and they'd say, everybody get rid of your notes. You're not allowed to take notes anymore. And then over time, people would start taking notes again, and then they would say, everybody get rid of your notes. Like, they'd have big meetings about it.
Yeah, and they would, and like when they told, like if they were giving a study and they told you at that time don't take notes, they had people walking up and down the aisles to make sure no one was taking notes.
For sure. Especially in Korea, right? Like, you're not allowed to take pictures in Korea.
Yeah,
And I
you're
don't
not
know.
allowed to take pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not allowed to take pictures. You're not allowed to take notes, anything like that.
Yeah, and so it's well, when I had gone the first time I had gone, I don't think they allowed us to take many notes. I think they kind of, well, because I went in 2008 and 2009, so that was a good amount of time ago. And so at that time they were kind of like, here you can take notes, here you can't. And
Yeah.
so, but again, they have, people watching to make sure you don't take any notes.
But you're never allowed to take pictures.
How do you guys think
Yeah,
they
not
do
allowed to
that
take
now with
pictures.
like cell phones? Like all you'd have to do is hit record in your pocket.
Well, that's true, but the thing is I only know for the United States, but in the United States, it's a state-by-state basis. So some states you can record somebody without them knowing,
Oh, okay.
and that would be an issue. Some states like Oregon, and Washington, for example, you can't do that.
Okay,
So
if you put it on YouTube, they could like sue you for that.
Yeah, they could, because that's, the people didn't know that they were being recorded. So, but yeah, that's the thing, but they definitely don't allow people to have their cell phones or any iPads in the sanctuary, out in the sanctuary.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's same in America too, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I only know.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about for other churches, but I know that for, at least in the U.S.
Yeah, like you're not
they
allowed to
didn't-
record pastor sermons or anything like that.
Yeah, no. Well, again, if it's like I think if it's like a state, like, I don't know any states off the top of my head, but I know some
Right.
states they allow you, if you're in a public setting, which I don't know if I think a church counts as a public setting.
Yeah.
If you're in a public setting, you can record somebody without their knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
But the church would never allow you to.
Oh no, if they knew it, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to
Absolutely
keep
not.
all their information. And that was one thing my sister, when I first started, she wanted to come for a service and they wouldn't let her.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That
no.
used to piss me off. I was like, let me just come sit in the back. I won't say anything. Tony's like, you just can't do that. And I'm like, that's so weird. I just want to come hear what
I'm
you
like,
guys
just
do
get
like that."
baptized first and then you can keep a service.
Yeah, and they're like, I don't want to get baptized. I don't believe in it. I just want to come see what you guys do all day.
Yeah, no, I've seen people. I've seen where people walk in just off the street because they see, oh, a church in service. Let me go to that church.
Yes,
And
it's so awkward.
We have the I don't know what they're called, but they're the people, one person sitting in the back that watches all the people come in.
They're like bodyguards.
Yeah, bodyguards. And if they see, like, they'll ask, like, okay, who invited you? And if they're like, oh, I just walked in, they'll walk them back out.
Yeah.
Wow.
And say, oh, like, please,
yeah.
here's my number, call for a Bible study, and then,
Wow.
and I think a lot of it had to do not only with the sermon, but also, I was always told with the prayer of our wishes, since it was in Korean, because they said, oh, it can freak some people out, and so it make them not want to come back to the church.
Right.
So,
Weird.
yeah.
You don't want to overwhelm them with all the things that they don't know about yet.
Yeah. Like
They
say
kill their spirit too fast.
Yeah.
They need to be ready first.
Exactly, because they say, like, if you're doing chemistry, you don't just jump into chemistry. You got to do, like, XYZ beforehand.
You don't shove a steak down a baby's throat. You give them milk.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's all information control.
It is because, like, when we would go out preaching, like, we wouldn't tell people all the requirements to be in the church. It's not just a matter of getting baptized. That's the easiest thing you got to do, is get baptized and sit and listen to a Bible study.
Yes.
From then on, once they finish all those Bible studies with you, you have to start tithing, and then you have to start preaching. Like, there's, like, it's your entire day, every single day, any kind of, like, free time has to be dedicated to the church, whether it's studying, praying, or preaching, or being at the church, or doing something for the church. Like, that's what your free time should be.
Yeah, and you can't tell someone that off of the street because they'll be like,
no,
yeah, fucking
yeah.
Yeah, they're like, I'm not joining that.
One of the videos that really helped me so much, I don't know why, I had never thought about this, was one of the videos that you were talking about, and thank you so much for doing those videos. You were talking about Sabbath day, and about how Sabbath is a day of rest. And, like, that's what we're taught. We're supposed to rest on the Sabbath. But then you were like, nobody rests on the Sabbath, because Saturday is the busiest day of the whole week. Yeah. And by the end of Saturday, you are so exhausted. You just pass out at the end. Your spirit, your body, your brain, everything is exhausted.
Yeah.
And I thought, and that was the first time that it hit me, like, oh my God, that's so true.
And once you join the church, you never have a Saturday off for the rest of your life until you decide to leave.
Never.
I can, in 10 years, I can count on one hand how many Sabbath days I missed.
Right.
It's like, it's grueling.
Did you help with the children or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I that was real hard. Not gonna lie. I mean, I did a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any kind of leadership role really until I had moved to Portland after I graduated. And so like I was like co-group leader because there were, for some reason they had two of us as group leader over the young adult sisters. So I was co-group leader over the young adult sisters. I was course class teacher for a couple of years. I was in charge of the kids for a couple of years. Like my whole Sabbath day would be spent with the kids. And then they put me in charge of the teenage group for a while. And then I begged to get off of that one.
Yeah.
I begged.
It's
And
so
then,
hard for the teenage age. I mean,
Oh,
it's hard
yeah.
for all the kids, but that age is.
I don't blame any of the kids because these staying inside of a church, inside of a room for 12 hours on a Saturday, that's not ideal for any child.
So teenagers were separated out of the sanctuary too during Sabbath?
Not
No,
during
actually,
service.
no, actually, so I think I know larger churches do it a little differently. Mine was we were in a building, but we were still like number wise, we were still pretty small, only like 100 people. So like most of everybody was upstairs in the sanctuary during the service, except for like the babies, like the newborns.
Yeah.
They were downstairs. But yeah.
But like probably like 2 and up is in the big sanctuary, right? Together.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, like some of the parents, they would like do the craziest stuff to, because like the kids had to stay awake during the service, and so what they would do is I saw one person, she would take a pen and click the pen on, and she'd like hit her kids in the leg with the pen open to wake them up if they started falling asleep, or they would make them like sit up and not allow them to put their backs against the pew. To make sure to help them stay awake. And those services, when you hear the same sermons over and over again. It's not like other churches where they're like motivational like sermons. These are like the same sermons, different titles kind of thing.
Right.
Like, and there's only like 60 or 70 of them.
Right. Yeah. Repetitive. Repetition over and over and over. But it's much expectation for kids. I mean, it's hard enough for adults. For the kids, it's like unrealistic.
Yeah, and I know for me, like I would definitely have a hard time staying awake during at least the afternoon service.
For sure.
But the worst was because I was one of the people that gathered the offering during the service, and so I'd be sitting front row and fall asleep. And so the person sitting next to me would always like nudge me awake until one day she's like, if you don't start staying awake during service, I'm not going to mark you as here.
Oh, yeah, they
take a big no.
They take attendance.
They take attendance and send it to Korea.
Yeah, all your attendance is recorded.
Yeah, and if you don't have perfect attendance, you can't go to Korea to see God
that's
the Mother.
How they decide, like, what you can participate in, if you can be a certain leader, whatever. It's all recorded. Yeah, I remember people like punching themselves in the legs trying to stay awake.
Yep. Or like taking their nail and digging their nail into their hand.
Yes. Yeah. It is weird when you look back at it, but at the time it feels normal.
Yeah, it was because like I don't know what it was. It was just like afternoon service would hit. I could have all the energy at the beginning of the service, and then like after the first, after the new songs, it's just like lights out for me. It was just.
But you know what? Now looking back, it's totally normal because you've been there since 8 a.m. and then you just had this big old lunch, and then you got to stay there till 10 p.m. So of course you want to have a little nap at 2:30.
Yeah. And you have to, and like the thing is like when you're in the church, and only on the Sabbath day, but anytime you're in the church or around church members, you have to be on.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't show that you're tired. You can't show that there's any kind of problem you have. Like you have to be positive and you have to be just on the entire time.
Don't you feel like that sort of created a cult identity? Like now that I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it, I feel like I was a separate person. Like as soon as you step in the
Yeah.
doors, you're just like, gotta smile, gotta have heavenly culture, heavenly etiquette. You can't show any like grumbling.
Yep.
And like you said, you just always have to be on, always ready to serve, always ready to go. And so you're constantly in this like state of stress, maybe
Yeah.
awareness.
Yeah.
And that's not
Well,
healthy.
no, and now they're even coming out with like, toxic positivity is a real thing, and
Yeah.
like that fits the church to a T, because I mean, like I don't know how many sermons I had to listen to where like, the God the Mother would say things like you're like when you're angry, you're choosing to be angry.
Yeah.
Like you're choosing these bad emotions. So choose the positivity, basically fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And like we had to be positive so much that it was not very healthy.
Yeah.
Because that's not real. That's not
Yeah.
human. The
Yeah.
human experience can be like tragic, and
Yeah. And I
nobody is
remember,
happy all the time.
yeah, and you know what? I remember because when I was in the church, both my parents had died when I was in the church.
Oh,
Oh.
wow.
And my mom had died in 2016, literally 2 days before a mission trip.
Mm.
2 days, and this was a mission trip coming to Portland.
Mm.
So I was gonna join the mission trip, but at the time I didn't. But of course, she died like 3 days before a Sabbath.
Mm.
So I have to go to the Sabbath. I can't show any kind of sad,
Oh.
negative emotion, anything. I have to be positive the whole time.
Oh, I'm
And so
so sorry.
but I did the deaconess, she knew what had happened, and she told me at the end of the Sabbath, she's like, I'm really proud of you. Good job for not showing any emotion.
Oh, my
Mm.
Wow.
It's so bad.
Kelsey, I'm so sorry.
At the time I was really proud of myself. I was like, oh, I did good, but now it's like, oh my god, it's so bad.
Oh.
And they actually told me, the overseer's wife at the time had told me that the reason why my parents had died was because I wasn't preaching hard enough.
Oh.
Yeah, and that still didn't make me leave.
Mm.
Wow.
That still didn't make me leave.
Mm.
But looking back now, I'm like, oh my god, that's so bad.
Wow. When you were
Yeah.
in it, were your parents angry with you, or were they just kind of like,
No,
all right, we love
no,
you?
they really just didn't care.
Like,
I mean, they definitely, I did find out after my dad died how many people he told I was in a cult.
oh,
Mm.
yeah.
For sure, a Korean cult specifically. But I mean, they never said anything to me, and they never stopped me from. There's only like one time where my mom tried to stop me from going to a Sabbath day, but that was because like she rightfully tried to stop me because it was like 3-4 inches of snow. And
Mm.
to the rest of the world that gets snow regularly, that's nothing. But for like Portland, half an inch, the whole thing is shut down. Like, let me tell you, we had
Right.
like half an inch, everything shut down.
Mm.
And so my car was not the greatest car, and tires definitely weren't good, and I definitely didn't have chains. But
Mm.
I drove to the
Mm.
church that day and to keep the Sabbath day, and there was a bunch of people that lived closer that didn't make it, and they definitely, were like, the people with the strong faith came today.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so and then
Hey,
like,
if you live in a city that doesn't have snow often, everybody makes fun of those states. But if you don't have the infrastructure to take care of it, it's like so dangerous.
Yeah, and
It
if you're
You
not
don't
is.
used
clean
to
the
it.
roads. You don't have nobody knows how to drive in it. It's so dangerous to drive.
Well, let me tell you, we live in a state that has a ton of snow. Not now, but
Yeah.
we would go like blizzards or whatever. You have to be at church. You walk, you take the
Jeez.
bus, you do whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. It's like
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
doesn't
they
matter.
expected you.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
expected you.
it doesn't matter what's going on. They expect you to be at the church.
Mm.
Like, I remember being told the story about how the second LA Zion, they had like fires in California, and
Mm.
one of the fires was really close to the church. And this is a story I was told. I don't know if this actually happened, but what I was told was smoke was coming in from under the doors,
Oh my
and
gosh.
people still stayed.
Mm.
And so like that's
because they
how, like,
think they're going to be protected there.
yeah, they think they'll be protected, that the disaster will literally pass over them, but that's not the case. And then now, like, after, natural disasters have destroyed some of the church buildings, now they change their rhetoric, and they're saying, like, oh, the disaster passes over the people, not the buildings. And so it's, yeah, and then now it's like, oh, the 144,000 who kept the Passover will be protected, kind of thing. And so it's, yeah, they just keep changing it. But
They're trying to change them. So
well, because
saying,
now they have way more than 144,000 members, but a lot of groups, a lot of different religions use that.
That's
that
like in
number.
the Bible.
It's in the Bible,
Yeah.
but they all have that same problem. Like, 144,000 is in the Bible, but we have hundreds of thousands of members.
It is a cognitive dissonance, or what is that the word that it would be? Like trying to squish in what the Bible's saying to like reality.
Oh,
what's that word? Is that cognitive?
It's the, I always forget which one's which. It's the either eisegesis or exegesis. It's where you have your own interpretation, and then you try to find verses in the Bible that will support that interpretation.
Oh, they definitely do that.
Yeah. And so, but with the Church of God, they got around that because they said, because as I understand it, I got baptized in 2007, but as I understand from other people is that, before 2007, they were saying 144,000 will be saved, but then they had more than 144,000. So they changed it to 144,000 plus a great multitude. And a great multitude, they are the ones who will face physical death, but they're still going to be saved. And so, and the great multitude can't be counted. So from that time we were told, like, oh, we're still preaching because the 144,000 hadn't been found. Even though we had more than 144,000 members, what that meant was not everybody is 144,000. Because 144,000 were the ones that, like, they're the best of the best, not going to face physical death. We don't know who they are. We just
everybody's fighting to be them. Like, there's so much competition to like be the best. Everybody's competing with each other. Don't you feel like that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a numbers game. It really is. Because you're like, they literally take, and it's so weird, they literally take count of how many people you recruit, and not only how many people you recruit, but how many people you recruit who come into the church, who are baptized, who start tithing, and who preach and bear fruit themselves. So they take count of all these different things, and they call that bearing a talent. And so you would think that the more people you recruit, the better standing you are, and like the more faithful you are. And so it's like there's like the requirements, like for course class, I saw so many. The course classes, the classes that they made us, like, where we had to like basically study to become, like, to preach the subjects. But even, so we had to study to preach the subjects. And course class, like, one of the requirements to pass is you had to bear fruit, which means you had to recruit somebody that comes to the church and gets baptized. And so many people failed course class, not because they failed the subjects, but because they could not get anybody to come to the church to get baptized. And so they would be stuck in course class for years because they couldn't. Yeah, it is, because then you're stuck learning the same exact subjects over and over and over again.
But then you're taught that the reason you're not bearing fruit is because there's something wrong with you. So, like, only a good tree can bear a good fruit. Yeah. So, like, you have to be healthy. And so if you're not spiritually healthy, that's why you're not bearing fruit. So there's something within you that you need to change, something wrong with you. So you're constantly trying to figure it out. You're constantly preaching. You're crying. You're praying to bear fruit because you want to move up on your course class too.
Yeah. And it's not only to move up in the course class. I mean, like, when you're in a small enough church, like, everybody knows whether or not you bore fruit. Right. Everybody. Like, in my, because I've only been in small churches. Right. With, like, 100 members or less. And so everybody knows whether or not you bear fruit. For sure. Which means everybody knows whether or not there's something wrong with you.
Right. Wow.
Yep. And so it's just a lot of, like, gaslighting.
It is.
It's saying there's something wrong with you because we're not growing, know.
It's a lot of judging. You're judging yourself. You're judging others. It's a lot of judging.
And the thing is, within a cult environment, nobody really, it's weird because like nobody really teaches you these things. You just kind of like it's part of maybe it's part of groupthink where you just kind of like adapt to the environment around you. And so like for example, like nobody taught us that, oh, if somebody's not wearing a skirt to service, like to inherently feel a little judgy towards them, you know what I'm saying? Like nobody teaches you those kind of things, you just kind of learn it.
It
I don't
just
know how
happens
to.
in your brain.
Yeah. And like with like preaching, like using certain techniques to preach, depending on the person's background or depending on the environment around you, or just using certain techniques to kind of get people to listen to you or to commit. Nobody, it's funny because like nobody really, some of them, yes, they're taught, but a lot of them it's just you kind of pick up by watching everybody else.
Yes.
Wow.
They
And
call it
so,
having discernment and like
yeah.
having wisdom of like,
Mhm.
different tactics, how to approach people, how to preach to some people but not to other people. But really what you're
Yeah.
doing is you're just continuing the mind control, tactics, but you don't even know that you're doing it.
No, you don't. You
You don't.
don't. It just
Tony,
becomes part of like
Psyche.
yeah.
It's so crazy. Yeah, interesting.
Tony was telling me about your guys' letters to mother. Do
Oh
you
my
guys feel
gosh, yeah.
comfortable talking about that?
Did you write letters?
Yeah, I did.
You know what's
Yeah, I did.
interesting? I totally forgot about that. Even though it was such an important part of what we did, I completely forgot about it until like a few weeks ago. Which I
No,
can't
yeah,
believe.
and that happens to me too. Like, I'll forget it. I'll completely forget about something until somebody else says something and it just sparks a memory.
So weird. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we would confess everything because we weren't, like you said, we weren't allowed to have any emotion, so we couldn't talk to each other. Our closest people that you're
Oh,
with,
you would confess the worst things you did in those letters.
yes, you can't talk to your people that are with you, so they just say, oh, write to mother, write to mother. So you
Yep.
write everything. You confess everything, but
And then do you
Which
mail it
I
to them?
never
no, it's through email. It's through the website. Everything is through a
well,
website through an app. Yeah.
well, so yeah, most of it's through the website, but there's times where like if members are going to Korea,
You can
you
also
can,
write her
yeah.
a special
Yeah.
letter.
And like
And
send
for me, I would write my letters in Korean
Oh,
because
wow.
that was my major in school was Korean.
oh, that's so cool.
It's cool and like very unfortunate at the same time because what can you do with a degree in Korean? But obviously, because when I was going to school, I hated school. I really, really did because 18, 19, 20 years old, all I wanted to do was preach, right? And I was so jealous of all the members
that's
that,
that's
well,
not
that's
what
not a
I thought you were
normal
gonna
one,
say.
but
She thought you were gonna say party or something, but you said
no.
preach.
Oh my gosh. If only it was party. No.
Yeah.
Uh, like
Preaching
no.
was like partying. You caught me off
Oh my
guard
god.
there.
I did. So like all I wanted to do was preach because I was so jealous of all the members that got to preach full time.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to do that. And so I thought, okay, how can I make my college experience worth it for the gospel? So my university at the time happened to be one of like 2 universities in the US where you can major in Korean.
Wow.
And so that's what I did.
Wow.
And so
I bet they loved that.
oh no, they hated it. They hated it.
We'll have to
You know
talk
why?
about that a little
The
bit more
church
later.
hated that?
Yes. You know why?
Because then you can
Because then
understand them?
yes, then I can
That's
understand what they were saying.
awesome.
Because the Korean women, it's like gossip central. Okay.
Totally.
I bet.
Gossip central. Okay. And so it was weird because like I would tell them like, every single time you guys don't want me to understand, I understand.
Yeah.
And so I mean I would I could understand even if because they speak in Korean so that the others can't hear or they can't understand. They're some speak in Korean because it's easier, but at least in my Zions, the majority of the time it was because they didn't want the others to understand or they were
This is
talking about
so-
them right in front of them.
You can read like the original writings and from Father.
Oh, I'm not that skilled.
Oh, okay.
Because like for me, Like
Dude, I'm
I
sure
wish
that's so complicated. I mean, that is a language. That
the
is
most
complicated
complicated.
Oh,
language.
Korean. I bet it's like,
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
reading it is simple. Reading it is very easy. The hard part is, and getting I can get my point across in Korean, but the hard part for me is the grammar. Because
Mm.
the grammar, like for us, like for English, it's like subject, verb, object. Like I bounced the ball, right? But in
Mm.
Korean, it's subject, object, verb. So it'd be I the ball bounced, or just ball bounce, or the
Mm.
ball bounced, or
Mm.
sorry, yeah, something like that. And so it's just it, yeah. So yeah, so my major was Korean, and they hated it because yeah, I could understand what they were saying a lot of the time, so they couldn't really speak Korean in front of me like they wanted to. Um, and so yeah, yeah,
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so you can see like the control of information even from like the Korean members to the
yeah,
American members, it's controlled and
yes.
it's different. So what finally
It's very different for the Korean members.
so you were like really in it.
Yeah.
What helped you get out? What finally did it?
So for me, like I would say like I mentally checked out like long before I actually checked out.
Yeah.
Because
Have
I
you
would
ever
say
heard
like,
have you ever heard
huh?
that term like physically in, mentally out?
Yeah, that describes it. I mean, like
Yeah.
I was physically there. I was physically there for all the services. Yeah, I still, I even went preaching. But I lived about 35, 40 minutes away from the church, so I would do towards the end, like I was just like, I don't want to drive all the way to the city. It's near Portland. It's called Milwaukee. Actually, it's right next to a place called Happy Valley, which they liked.
Oh, I
Um,
bet.
and so it was in this city called Milwaukee, and I was like, I don't want to drive all the way to Milwaukee. I just want to stay in Vancouver and just preach by myself here. Like I didn't even want to call like other members who lived here. I just wanted to do it by myself, and I did. Um,
Wow.
and you know what? I did it, and because they also take attendance for preaching. Sometimes I wouldn't even call them to tell them I went preaching. I would just do it by myself because I was just like checked out. But
That's
it was
great.
weird. It was weird. I was checked out, but I was still recruiting.
Yeah.
And so and as I'm recruiting, like I felt bad when people would like be excited to hear what I was saying because I was like, you have no idea
Oh,
what you're in for if you decide to come. And so, but I was still doing it. And then, but what I was just, but because I wasn't reporting that I was going preaching, and I obviously I didn't have any like people that wanted to come get baptized. The overseer's wife would always tell me that I was lazy, that I needed to do more for the gospel, and so yeah, so I was just so tired of it all. I was so tired of constantly being broke. I mean, almost all my money. If it didn't go to rent, it went to the church. And
mm-hmm.
there were some weeks where I only had like $20 for 2 weeks worth of food. Like I was broke beyond broke.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was in my head I was like, I can't just leave because I'm tired. Like I felt like I had to have a solid reason because if in my head if I leave because I'm tired, that would just prove them right that I'm just lazy.
Mm.
And so what I did was I started while I was working, I would listen to the Leah Remini show,
Oh yeah.
Mm.
her Scientology show. And at that time it was like season 1 where she explains all the doctrines of um of Scientology, and then she interviews people who've like lost family members to the church, like lost contact with family members because of disconnection. And I was like, this is in my head, I was like, you know what, like because I was still in the church when I was listening to that, and after like an episode or two I was like, I gotta turn this off, this is influencing my thoughts to leave the church, like I gotta turn this off.
It's scary when you
Yeah.
first hear it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I was like, because that's a completely different. That's not even Scientology is not really it's just a church for tax purposes. It's not really a church in that they believe in the Bible or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, and so like this is like a group with completely different beliefs than the church I belong to, but yet their tactics are so similar. And so that's like really got me starting to think like, okay, like this is a cult, maybe like this will push me to move. But then at the same time, like I was like, okay, I need to turn this off, this is influencing me way too much. But I literally couldn't stop thinking about that. And so and then because I know you guys had Chad on a few episodes ago, that I don't know who talked to him, but and I definitely didn't know the backstory behind that YouTube video, but his YouTube video, his conversation with that guy, like when I heard that one, I listened to that one at least, I must have listened to it, 3-4 times all the way through.
Oh, wow.
Because I was like, okay, everything he's saying is so accurate. Like I didn't even know who he was. And I mean, I knew he wasn't part of my Zion, but I didn't even know who he was. But I was like, everything he's saying is so spot on. And so after I heard that, like I think it only took me like 2 more Sabbaths before I was like, I just didn't show up.
Wow.
And so I was just, because also like the overseer of my church, something happened to where him and his wife got a call on a third day, and they were given less than a week to move back to California. And so like when they left, like I didn't even want, because I had so many issues with this overseer, and I knew a bunch of like members, like they really liked this overseer, but they didn't know all the behind the scenes stuff. And so I was like, you know what, I don't want to see these people all sad that they're going. Like I was happy that I was happy to see them going. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave. And so I didn't show up, and got a bunch of calls and didn't answer any of them. And then they showed up to my work on Monday.
Oh, wow.
And my work, you can't just walk in. Like
Yeah.
there's a security office you have to go through, right? So I got a message on Skype from the security office saying my sister-in-law was there to see me. And I don't have a sister-in-law.
Oh, my
And
God.
so I was like, oh, that's weird. But I was like, okay, I'll go see who it is.
Yeah.
I did not expect it to be, because it was one of the Korean sisters that I was pretty close with, and so I was like, oh. So I mean I met with her because she came all the way, and I was nice, and and but yeah, she definitely showed up at my work, and she was like, how come you didn't come? Just missing one Sabbath.
Wow.
Just one Sabbath.
Oh, I believe it. How did that make you feel? Like, did that give you anxiety, or were you like stressed when you saw her? Were you happy to see her?
I definitely had anxiety. And like, even though I've left, even the people that, it's weird, even the people that wronged me, I still care about them.
Yeah.
Like, even if I saw this person now, like I would gladly go get some coffee with this person.
Right.
I mean, like I do genuinely, I mean, me and this person too, like this Korean sister, we went through a lot together. And so I wasn't, I mean, it definitely wasn't appropriate for her to show up in my work, but I definitely wasn't like angry over it.
Right.
But I did, she's like, basically she was like, just, any questions you have about the church, just, let's sit down, ask me anything. And I was already one of those people that like when other people like had questions about the church, they would send me to go dispel those questions,
Right.
So I knew everything that
You're
they were
like,
gonna
I don't
say.
have any questions. I'm just tired.
Well, that was initially it. I was just tired.
Yeah.
And
You're
then
like, I just want to nap.
and she's like, well, just come and try to keep at least one service. And I said, I'll think about it, because I'm really bad at saying no. So I'll think about it. And then again, in my mind, I was like, I have to have a concrete reason for leaving. Like I have to have some kind of reason. And so that's when I went online, and I went on the examining site, the site they always tell us not to go to. And I went to that site, read the entire site all the way through, which I had never done. And the thing that stuck out the most, that was kind of like the nail in the coffin to close this chapter, was the tax forms. The forms that they filled out for tax exempt status.
Right.
for Los Angeles and Bloomingdale, Illinois, I think, and then one in New York or New Jersey. But the
Right.
LA one stood out to me because they said that the church was started in or around 1998 by founding father Kim Ju Chol.
No,
By
that's
founding
okay.
father.
No, that's okay.
I think that's
By
fine.
the founding father, because
It's
he
on
had
their
a
own tax records. It's public information, right?
yeah, this is public information.
Right.
It was started by that guy, founding father, because he had a vision from God, and I was like, what
That's
in the
such a
world?
lie.
Ooh,
I was like, what
All
in
of
the
that is a
world is
lie. That's
this?
not who our founder is. That's not what year it was established. None of that is true.
And
Wow.
he didn't have a vision. I mean,
Right.
how many times did they criticize the Mormon church because
Right.
they said, "Oh, how can you believe Joseph Smith?
For
He says
having
he
a
has a
vision.
vision." And
Right.
I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that."
Right.
And
That's
And why
fascinating.
would they? Like, why would they lie? What's the point? Why not just
exactly,
say
there's
the truth?
no
I
well,
got a theory on that, but we'll do that
I
offline.
have a theory on that too. But
None of us are brave enough to say that online.
But it's interesting because when you come out and then you just see that information, you're like,
what else are
all
they
that
lying
stuff on
about?
that website is just shocking. Shocking.
Yeah, it is. Because when I was a member of the church, like I had seen that website a couple of times. Again, I was sometimes sent to go talk to people who looked at that website and dispel the
Right.
stuff. So that's the thing, is I read through the whole website. I knew exactly what they were going to say to each of the points on the website. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I did was I prepared one question ahead, and I wrote down just like almost 100 questions, wrote
Wow.
them all down, and I sat down with that person who came to my work, and I said, okay, here are my questions. I looked on the examining site, and as soon as I said I looked on the examining site, all calls, all texts from members completely stopped.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so
Because at
yeah,
that point, I think they kind of give up on you. Like,
well, they no, not because they gave up on me. I'm sure they were told not to talk to me.
right. It's also like part of their shunning, like all of it is
Yeah.
part of shunning. And then when did
And
you
I
start doing videos? Did you start doing videos right away or?
No, no, no. It was I definitely didn't do it right away. It might
Yeah.
have been like a year or more, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe a year and a half, because when I first got out, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna make any videos. I was like, people can just Google this on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a couple issues with that. I mean, you can Google the church, but unless you put the word cult with it,
Yeah.
like the negative stuff, or the not the negative stuff, the truthful stuff about the church, doesn't show up until like page 2.
All
I
right.
know.
Okay. And so, because they're good at what they do. They
Yeah.
are very they know search engine tactics like no other.
Right.
That's why that's why, because originally there were only like just maybe 2, 3 church websites.
Mm.
Suddenly, after 2013, they definitely created a website for every single,
Mm-hmm.
big church and
Mm.
more, and at least in the US. So now when people search, the church name, it's just all the church websites come up. Maybe one news article will come up about the usually it's the People magazine news article.
Right.
Yeah.
But the examining site, I think, is not until like page 2 or 3. Whereas it used to be the first thing that pops up when somebody Googles just the name of the church. But this site is so important because I mean, it has so many good pieces of information
Mm-hmm.
that are
All in
all
one
public
place.
records.
Right.
Yeah,
All in
all
one
in one
place.
place. And so, I mean, you could spend a lot of time just reading through that site, and that really, I mean, that helps nail the coffin shut on me attending that church. And so again, I met with the person, asked her all the questions. She couldn't answer any of them. She
Mm.
wrote down some of them. She's like, I need to ask the pastor about this. So
That sounds
she
familiar.
could, but the one big question that I asked was, where is the proof that the founder was baptized in 1948?
Mm.
I said, so much of the doctrine is based off of that. If he wasn't baptized in 1948, he is not the second coming Christ. He is not God.
And then it
So
all
where,
falls apart.
yeah, so I said, where's the proof that he was baptized in 1948? And she's like, oh, well, the proof was destroyed in a fire. Okay, what fire? When did that fire happen? What location was it at? And I said, what was the name of the church he was baptized into? This is the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I said, no, that's the, overarching. I said, what's the specific church name? Um, so she couldn't answer any of those questions. And then I had found an article online that had photographic evidence of a record, because again, I can read Korean, of him being baptized in 1954. And so, 1954.
Wow.
And that was on the examining site also. Shout out to that site.
Well, that at the time that wasn't on the examining site.
It is now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so I saw that, and the thing is, luckily, because that was the first time I had seen that, but luckily, the church had already written an article on, their anti-examining site about all the issues with the article saying he was baptized in 1954. So I read that through, and I prepared again one question ahead, and because they're saying is like, oh, all the records are out of order. This is a fake document. And I said, well, this was the 50s in Korea. They don't have Excel where they can just,
Right.
sort.
Yeah.
I said that a lot of churches, in and around that time, they started creating records for not censuses, but like genealogy.
Yeah.
And so I say it's very possible people are standing in a line to give their information, or, they're going up to people and saying, hey, what's your information? Writing it in their log.
Right.
I said, just because it's not in order is not proof that, I'm not saying it's proof that it's valid, but I'm saying it's not proof that it's fake. And I said, this is at least a record. Where's your record that he was baptized in 1948?
Right.
And then she had told me, she's like, oh, it was destroyed in a fire. Come to find later, now I've heard from several people that suddenly they're starting to show a certificate.
Oh, wow.
Really?
And I was like, and I said, okay. I said, why? First of all, a couple issues with that. Why don't they make the certificate available so a third party can identify the validity of it?
Right.
First thing. Second thing is, if they had that all along and people left because they didn't believe in Ansang Hong or that he was baptized in 1948, their blood is on your hands spiritually.
Right.
So
like they would never let that
them?
happen. They would, if they had that, they would have shown that from the beginning.
Yeah. And so I said, and then third, they told me it was destroyed in a fire.
Right. Right. So, which one is it?
Yeah. I was like, y'all got some issues with this.
Well, when I went to Korea, they have it in the museum. They have his Bible, and it says his baptism date in the Bible, which is supposed to be proof.
Yeah, and that's what I said. That's what I said. I said, first of all, where's the proof that was his Bible?
Yeah.
Because think about it, like there's pictures of him, like the other branch church that came out of the original church. They have pictures of the founder, and when you see the pictures of if you remember what his Bible, I think they had 3 Bibles in the museum, right?
Right.
If you remember what the Bibles look like and you see those pictures, and in those pictures he has a Bible with him, it's not the same one.
Oh.
And so my question to them was, first of all, like, how do we know that's his Bible? Second of all, how do we know that's his handwriting? None of his, children were in this particular church. So why is it that this church would have his belongings?
Right.
Right. So I said, this isn't undeniable proof that he was baptized in 1948. I could literally, take a old Bible, right? I was baptized in 1956 and say, oh, look I found a Bible.
Right. Like anybody
the
can
female
write
founder.
That. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anybody can write that. So that's not undeniable proof that he was baptized in 1948. But yet you expect me to give up my entire life,
right? Give you all my money,
entire life, all my money, because of some proof that you say exists but can't be validated.
And it's like the main basis of what we believe.
Yeah, because everything comes from, like, if you can't prove that he was baptized in 1948, everything else comes crumbling down. Right. Because all the teachings from the church, a lot of them are heavily leveraged from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Right. Some of them come from the Unification Church. Some of them come from the Armstrong Church. Right. Like, there's not any. The only really unique doctrine is the doctrine of God the Mother. But even that, all like even that I I strongly believe was taken or leveraged from the woman they say claimed to be God the Mother in the early 80s. You know what I'm
Mm.
talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like in the early beginnings
Someone
of the
different?
church.
What?
She claimed to be God the Mother, and then it was shut down really quick.
What?
Well, see, that's the thing is they say she claims to be God the Mother, and I know Anselmo references it, but yet I've never seen the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she actually wrote 3 books. And one of the books she wrote was one in, I forgot the year. I want to say it was like 1978. She
Mm,
wrote a book explaining why she felt that the founder was God. Before
mm,
then, no one had talked about the founder being God. But
mm.
she's the one that I mean her writings about King David's study, about I believe Melchizedek, about Zion, they were written before An Sung Ho wrote about it in his books.
Mm.
Wow. Did
And
she turn
so
around and start a different religion in Korea, in South Korea then? Because there is another
no.
lady.
I don't know what happened to
There's
her.
another like mother religion.
Oh,
It's
that's the
very
Unification Church.
There's also Eastern Lightning. You
maybe
guys,
that's
there's
the one.
so
Yeah, the
Yeah.
many.
Switzerland one, or
There's
they're
one in
starting.
China. That one is in
Oh,
China.
maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
There's so
Yeah.
many.
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
been trying to.
it's not the idea of a God the Mother is not a unique idea to this church,
Yeah.
but what was unique was the way that they explained about it through the Bible.
Right.
I believe. And so, but the thing is or I mean, the founder, he didn't write in any of his books those studies.
Mm.
And so, so the only book that we know of where those studies appeared, and you can see referenced in his problems, or I mean, in one of the books that he wrote in the early 80s to dispel the idea of God the Mother, like
Sorry.
that, like those studies existed in her books, or her book, allegedly. And so I firmly believe that those her teachings the current church leveraged from and said it came from the founder, but I don't believe it came from the founder.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, there's
Again,
so
my
much.
opinion, but
There's so
yeah.
much that we don't know. I mean, in
Because it's
America,
in Korean. That's the
right?
problem.
We're
Is
so
because
disconnected. I remember when I was like having so much faith here, and I had this concept of, like what the faith was, what my belief was. And then when I traveled to Korea, it was so different from what I imagined.
yeah.
And I remember just feeling like this total like disconnect, but I was like, okay, well, if this is what it is, this is what I guess I'm believing in.
Yeah. And can we talk about how the Koreans were not expected to stay at Zion all day on the Sabbath day? They were only expected just to keep the services,
Right.
which
Oh,
was messed up.
You
Because
know
the
what? I don't
Americans,
think that was, I mean, I think some would leave, but for the most part, I think everybody would stay. But,
a, a good
you,
amount left.
uh,
That's what the Korean sisters told me when they were in Korea, is that
mm,
a good amount leave.
mm, that's
I
interesting.
think like the ones like because like space is always an issue. I think
Right,
the ones studying with
right,
people to get them baptized or new members, obviously those ones will stay.
right.
But there's a good amount that either go out preaching or go
Or
home and come
rest.
back because there's so many of the churches in Korea. It's not like the US where like some people might live 20-30 minutes away.
Right,
It's there's one. I mean, they're all over Korea. Korea's such a small country, and we
right,
know there's more than 400 of them in there.
right.
So
You can probably
yeah,
walk,
yeah. I
right?
think a lot of them did. Yeah.
Right, that's interesting. So,
Hmm.
when you first came out, like, did you sort of have a time where you were sort of in shock, or like where you kind of had to like block all religion out, or what was your experience like? Like you said, it took about a year until you made videos. So what was that year like? I'm curious.
Yeah. So like, it's weird. Like when I left, I was like, I didn't leave because of the doctrine. So like when I left, like in my head, like I was very convinced that I was gonna go to hell.
Mm,
That something bad was going to happen to me.
mm.
Because that's what they taught us. They taught
It's
us
so
through,
scary.
yeah,
Yeah.
they have a whole subject called "Apart from Me, You Can Do Nothing." That the intro of it is basically if you ever leave this church, something bad's going to happen to you, and you're gonna and they show a verse in the Bible that says, it's like if you leave the truth, it's like a dog returning to its vomit, you
Yes.
know. And it
I
would have been
thought
better
about
for
that
you.
all the time.
Yeah, and it would be better for you never to have known the truth at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so like I fully believed that I was going to go to hell when I left. But I had to like just kind of like bury it, because I was like, because in my head, I was like, if heaven is like this church, I'd rather go to hell. Because the church was, I mean, like, there's so many things that I wish that I could like say of like stuff I experienced, but some of it's not my story to tell. But I mean, I saw so many terrible things when I was in the church, and like I looked past every single one of them, and so I was like, you know what? I see people doing horrible things and getting rewarded in the church. And so I said, how can, how can this be the true church belonging to God with all these things that I've seen and experienced? And so like that helped me kind of just like bury it down. But then and so that took me a good long while. And the biggest, single-handedly, the biggest struggle I've had since I've left is trying to find something like a hobby.
Yeah.
That's single-handedly the biggest one, because like when you're in the church, you feel like anything that you're doing that's not church related is like, it's like a waste of time.
Sinful.
Like well, for me it was like, yeah, sinful, but also like a waste of time. So like it's I still struggle with this, somewhat today, is like, I'm like finding something I enjoy doing, and because of that. And even though I fully don't believe the church, I don't believe the church at all today, but I still struggle with that. But again, like, after I left, I think like maybe like a few months or maybe even a year after I left, I saw the Great Light Studios. They started doing videos about the church, because I guess they had met some people from the church, and they started doing videos explaining how through the Bible the doctrine of God the Mother was not there, or not, at least not there, not truthful based on the explanation that the church gave. And so I was like, okay, like this might help me, because I was like, if I can understand from the, because when you're in the church, you're so indoctrinated. I mean, I knew that I passed all the course classes. I, was even a course class teacher. Like I knew the subjects in and out. Okay. And so I was like, maybe this will help me if I can like see through the Bible how their teachings are wrong. Then maybe this will help me move on quicker, or move on better.
Right.
And so I had sent them a message on Facebook saying like, hey, I watched your video, and like just basically ask questions about what they said. And then I said, hey, can you do an episode on the Passover? I was like, because that's a big thing. Because they teach the Passover is the only way to eternal life. Like without the Passover, like it's nothing. That's like the central teaching of the Bible, is what they say. And so they sent me some notes, and then I saw they did a video with Jeremy, and Jeremy was a former member of this church. And when I saw that video, I was like, oh man, like I want to tell my story now. And so I made my own. Like I don't know how to do videos.
Me neither. That's why we do a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like I don't know how to do videos at all. So I just like filmed a video on my phone, and I was like, okay, this is my story. And then they commented on I got a lot of nasty comments from members.
Oh yeah.
But then the Great Light Studios commented and said, hey, will you do a video with us? And initially I turned them down because I was scared.
Yeah.
Because it took a while for me to post that one video, because I was like, oh my god, the church is gonna sue me.
Right.
I didn't sign any.
Scary.
I know I didn't sign any NDA, so I know it was okay on that front. But I was like, oh my god, the church is gonna sue me for something. I know it. And so I was like, so I told them like initially no, like Like I'm too scared to do it. And then eventually, obviously, I said yes. And then we did it. And as soon as I did the first one, I was like, okay, and then they just kept asking me to do more and more. So I was like, okay, because like for me, before we did the video, they asked me, what are the main things that if we took apart, would, just basically dissolve the whole rest of their doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave them, some topics, and the one thing I really appreciate, one of the things, well, there's many, but one of the things I really appreciate about them is how much they do their research.
Mm-hmm.
And prep work beforehand. And they came I mean, so when we did that first one, it just kind of clicked. And so we just kept doing more and more until, recently we've been doing their Staff of Moses book, which is like all the countermeasures.
Right. I love those videos with Great Light Studios and with Jordan. I mean, when I first saw him, I was nervous because, of course, he's a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, he's from Babylon,
Mm-hmm.
But then when I listened to him, he was so respectful, and he gave you guys like a safe platform to speak your truth, and I really loved that. And he was not judgy or anything.
Yeah.
And I loved that so much. But then, like you said, you received a lot of hateful comments. Like you guys got a lot of support, but those people, I mean, there were some comments,
There's
and
some
these
bad
were from
ones.
church members, you guys. The church members would say, it was something like, your hands and feet are going to be tied up and you're going to be burning in fire or something like that. And,
I mean,
how did that make you feel when, like, church people are saying those awful things to you, and you're not being awful. You guys weren't being mean. You were just speaking your story,
Yeah. Honestly, like, they don't bother me too badly, just because I know that people are saying them. They're caught up in this too.
I know.
It's that's the thing with cognitive dissonance, is that you can give them all the proof in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
You can give them absolutely all the proof in the world. You could even have a video of the founder saying, this church is, baloney.
Right.
This church is so fake. I just did this for money. You can have a video of that, and
Right.
they're still going to defend it, saying that's fake.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you can show them all the evidence in the world, and they're still not going to believe it until they're ready to.
That was me and Tony's relationship for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Does me researching and her going, oh, that was just Babylon. That's just fake.
Yeah.
That's just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it ever like trigger you or like make you think like because some of their stuff is kind of personal. Like I saw one of them seem to be like a church member that maybe you were friends with or close to.
Oh yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Does that
trigger
you and like make you want to like did it ever in a way make you want to go back, is kind of what I'm saying?
No, that's the thing. That's what's kind of almost a little comical about those kind of comments, is that they'll be like, these videos, you're from Satan, you're going to burn in hell, you need to come back to the church.
Right.
What makes you think
your
comment of telling me I'm going to burn in hell is going to make me want to come back?
Yeah. Right.
Spend time with you guys. Heck no.
But it's like, also like a fear, like, oh my God, what if they're right? And what if I am going to go to hell? You know what I mean? Like, that's sort of something that.
For me, I'm like, at the time, I was so far convinced that I first of all, looking on the examining site and seeing all the sketchy stuff that wasn't even doctrine related, but was just, why is the church like, saying, incorrect, founder information on the tax forms. Like, to me, like, that already proved that it was false, right? Everything else, like, I knew it was false. I just needed to see it. And so, like, none of their comments ever made me think like, oh, they're right, like I should go back. Like, since I've left, I'm a very, very indecisive person.
Mm-hmm.
like especially when it comes with life decisions, I'm a very indecisive person. But the one thing that I never questioned was I never thought like I should go back since I've left.
Yeah.
And you
said earlier you have a hard time saying no to people.
Yeah.
And I know Tony and I have kind of that same quality. Like you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and you don't
Yeah.
like
People pleasing.
we're people pleasers, and so I could
Yeah.
see that kind of like dynamic of a personality like in
Definitely.
conflict with that church because they're just like,
Plus, they're so
you know,
nice.
they're like
Yeah.
just do all these things. And I know like for myself, if I'm asked to do something like that and you don't want to say no, even though you do want to say no, you don't always say that. And I could see like that being a conflicting like personality
Yeah.
kind of environment.
Yeah.
It definitely is. Because even when you're going out preaching to somebody, there's
Hmm.
people that will stand and listen just because they don't want to say no. So you already got them in, you already got them close to you somehow. So I
Yeah.
Well, it's like,
definitely think that affects it. Yeah.
Yeah.
and they're nice, but they're also pushy.
Yeah.
Very pushy.
They're nice, but they know what they're doing, and they know how to like
Yeah.
get you into the
Yes.
band to go get baptized.
Totally. And I'm totally the kind
Yes.
of like not so much with the religion, but like I definitely find myself being like, why did I get myself in this situation? Like I knew
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that person was being overly
Right.
pushy about that.
Right.
So I can't even
Yeah.
imagine. I'm surprised that I never got wrapped up in it with Tony because I'm pretty like it's pretty hard to say no to people. That's like really hard to learn in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back to that one comment though about somebody who seemed like they knew me.
Yeah, yeah.
Because okay, that one did trigger me a bit because I think I know who posted that. I think that was the overseer at the time.
Ugh.
And again, like I had been doing like gospel work on the side and just not telling them.
Uh,
And so because again, they take attendance for preaching, right? Like sometimes like my sister was in uh school at the time at a community college, and sometimes I would go with her to the community college. But I mean I would go with her, but she thought I was just like studying, but I was really going around preaching. She
Oh,
didn't know that. But like again, I didn't report it in, so like he was like, you never did this, some members offered to preach with you, and he's like, you were not a leader. And I was like, yes I was a leader, and if you had an issue with it, you should have taken it up with the people that made me a leader.
right.
and
Because
also
like,
that feeling, I bet at the time you were like, well, at least God knows what I'm doing. I'm sure there was a note
yeah,
of like, they don't know
yeah,
what I'm doing, but God knows like my
yeah,
true
God knows
intention.
everything, right?
Yeah,
And God would know, right?
yeah,
So if the woman they say is God the mother, if she's really God, she would know what I do.
right.
Right.
So so yeah, I mean I knew who that I'm pretty sure I knew who that person was. And like that overseer was the one that had like 3-4 days to move back to California, if that's the person. If that's
Right.
not, and they're listening, my bad. But I'm pretty confident that that's the person.
It's
And
so, yeah.
and when I was like when and I was like I wasn't the co-group leader um over the young adult sisters when that person was in charge, but I was leader over the teenagers, and I begged that man multiple times, like, please, I don't want to be leader for the teenagers, because the teenagers were like, they were awful to each other. I mean, they're teenagers, right? They were
Yeah.
they were very, very much teenagers. They were awful to each other. The parents didn't care. The church, I mean, the overseer's wife was mad at me because they wouldn't listen, and apparently it's my fault that they won't listen. And it was just a hot mess. And I was begging, please don't make me do this. And the overseer at the time, he says, well, we don't have anyone that's qualified, so I guess you're just gonna have to do it right now.
Mm.
And so I was like, oh my gosh. And so eventually they replaced me, thank
Mm.
goodness. Um, but it was just, yeah. So when this overseer had met me, like I was already like, I was checking out. I was just done.
Right.
And so yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the
It's
guy.
it's so complicated because you do build these connections and these relationships with people that are in there, and then I just find myself missing so many people, so many brothers and
Yeah.
sisters. Do you have anything you'd want to say to anybody like that's still in there, like any?
Yeah. I mean, well, I haven't really thought of this, but I mean, I do, like you said, I do still care about the members who are there. I
Yeah.
mean, again, the majority of them, maybe not that overseer, but the majority of them, like
Right.
I would, like if they said, hey, do you want to go get a cup of coffee? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like I would, like if they called me, I would pick up the phone, I would answer, I would talk to them.
Right.
You know, like I, you know, they can reach out to me if they like, but you know, and even people who still want to stay in the church, like I'm not gonna make you leave. I'm not gonna.
Right.
Usually, if somebody contacts me who's from the church, like I'll tell them like, hey, I'm not gonna make you leave. If you're, you know, if this makes you happy, then you know, by all means.
Right.
If you want some information from me, I can, you know, share with you what information I have, and you know, you can make your own decision. But if you just need somebody to, because sometimes people just need somebody to talk to.
Right. Because you're not
Because
allowed to when you're in there. So sometimes
yeah,
it is nice to
or
just have someone to talk to.
yeah, or they're frustrated with their leader
Right.
and they can't talk to their leader because maybe they don't get along with their leader, and they'll contact me.
Right.
And so, so yeah, I mean, if you know, to somebody who's still in the church, I would just say, you know, don't be afraid to do your research and ask questions, and then really look at their answers to your questions. Are they trying to deflect? Are they trying to make you feel bad for asking the questions? And then, you know, look at all this, and you know, make your own decision. If you know,
Right.
if this makes you happy, you know, by all means. But if you know, if you're not having a good time, if you're feeling bad constantly and you really want to leave, don't be afraid to leave.
Right.
You know, you're not going to drop dead.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not going to go to hell.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, that would be my message. Just do your research and do what you want to do.
Right.
So I mean, yeah.
That's a great message. Yeah, it is sad. Like I feel sad sometimes missing them and
Oh, I mean, they're great people.
right.
I mean, they're really. I mean, a lot of the people that are in this group, they're there because they genuinely believe what they're doing is right. They
Right.
genuinely believe that they're saving the world.
Right.
And so, I mean, so if I wish the church would allow me to talk to them.
Yeah.
But you know, I've received messages saying the church said I'm on the side of Satan now and they need to avoid me. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From my side on the outside, it's kind of fun for me because I get to meet all of you guys like at the end as you come out. I'm getting to meet all of you guys through this process. And like you guys are all I can see what you guys are saying about the members, how you guys miss them and they're all good people because everybody that I've met so far that's come out of it is like genuinely like a sweet, like you're so sweet. It's been so nice to like talk to other people that have come out. And you guys just are all like genuinely, I could tell that you guys have like good hearts. You went in there with good intentions. You all came out because you know, you got frustrated with it. But I imagine that like most of the normal members are like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably like 1% of the church that's like intentionally
That's why it's so
negative
fun and
and
everybody's laughing and
yeah.
everybody's
Like you
having a
guys
good
all seem like
time.
such
yeah,
great people. And so I can like imagine that the church is filled with like other great people
Yeah.
that gets convoluted and
it,
complicated in this like cult mentality.
Yeah.
it does. I mean,
That's
your personality does tend to start changing when you're in the group, but yeah, for the most part, they're really just really great people, and even people that I would, you know, spend time with even before the church. Like if I had met them any other way, like I would still spend time with them. Like they're I mean they're funny. They're just they're great. Like at least the people I do, they're really great.
Right.
Even some of the people who said some really awful stuff to me, like
Right.
even some of them, like I know that in my head I know that they said it because they're under the influence
Right.
yeah.
of the
Right.
group, and
Right.
so and I get that, and I'm sure that even I said stuff like that too when I
Totally. I mean,
was, you know, in the
we've been
church.
on their side before, so we understand their mind.
Yeah, we've been rebuked and we've rebuked, you know,
Right.
and
Kelsey,
it's just mm,
I wanted to ask you if you feel like people have you compared your comments to any of like the male counterparts that have left? Because sometimes with like the internet comments, I feel like people feel like they're allowed to be like way nastier to women online than they are men. That's just my
well,
like feminist take on the whole thing. Like
oh
your
really?
comments seem like the most crass to me. Like I haven't seen any other. I mean, and I haven't like looked at every comment anyone's ever made on like the male side of their videos and stuff, but yours seem like personal and like mean.
I've seen some definitely bad ones for some of the males. Like Jeremy got some real bad
Oh, he
ones.
did. Okay. I was
Yeah.
wondering if it was the same for all of you guys, or if you feel like I feel like there's like this undertone of like you're allowed to say like way more evil things to women online. I don't know.
Well, I think I probably have more simply just because I've made more videos.
Okay.
Because I've done a lot of videos with Great Light.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, people have told me that I'm a clout chaser, that I'm just doing this for attention.
Yeah. Like
Um,
that kind of
with
thing, I guess.
Yeah, and that one makes me laugh because I have never asked to be on Great Light Studios. They've always asked me.
Yeah. Right. And we asked you, and for the record, we
Well,
asked Kelsey to come on too. So just to
and
let y'all
so
know.
like so
Right.
it's just this.
Do you find it healing to speak out like this?
I do
Yeah.
because well, it's like a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, yes, because I think it's very important to, even if you're not going to talk publicly, to at least talk about it.
Yeah.
Whether that be with, just a friend, family member, or a therapist, I think, it's very valuable to talk it out loud so you
Right.
don't keep it inside of you.
Right.
So yes, in that sense, yes. And other people have reached out to me, and thankfully, some of the videos have helped them. Which that's the only reason that I've done those videos is to help others because by helping others, I was really also helping myself because working with Great Light Studios and breaking down the doctrines, seeing through even regardless of my stance on the Bible now, you know, just seeing through the Bible that there are other ways to understand these verses and to read the context in which the verses are written. Because Lindsay, I don't know if you know, like you probably have experienced a Bible study. It goes from verse to,
Yeah.
another verse in the Bible. It's like back and forth through the
Yeah.
Bible,
Yeah.
and so like to actually read the context in which these verses are written has
Yeah.
been very helpful to myself, and I think and because like when I was in the church, they always said that when people leave the church, they never talk about the doctrine. They only talk about the physical lives of the founder and God the Mother. They never talk about doctrine. And so I was like, you know what? Yes, we do talk about the doctrine.
Yeah. Right.
And
And it
so
is when you read it when you're in a Bible study, it's so like for when I would come because I didn't have any like basic belief of like what the teaching was. It was like so dizzying, and then I would do that where I'd go back and read it like from the context of where it was taken out of, and I'm like, if you just read it like the whole page or the whole like chapter of what it's talking about, it makes
yeah, I mean, like also like I mean, the Bible studies really don't make any sense
ugh,
without the transitions.
yeah,
Right.
And so like you take because like when we learn to preach the subjects, we learn like an introduction and then we have a transition in the first verse. You got the first verse and then you have a transition in the next verse. If you remove those transitions,
yeah,
the verses don't make sense together.
they
Mhm.
don't,
And so like that's kind of how it started with Great Light Studios and myself, is that it was like, okay, here's the doctrines that I think like if you're able to do, explain these through the Bible how they are not the way the church says it is, then it'll dissolve everything else. And then it kind of just morphed into, okay, this is the subject we're going to tackle today. I'm going to play the role of the member of the church, and Jordan's going to explain his explanation, and it's basically going to be like me saying like, okay, this is what the church would say in this situation, and then he'd have a response for that. And we never like did like any kind of like, how do I say, like not preview. I never told him these church explanations ahead of time.
yeah,
Really?
Yeah. So his responses in those videos are like
Genuine.
just, yeah, they're genuine.
Wow.
Like
Wow.
we never practiced ahead of time or anything like that. So
Mhm.
like doing that, and it's really like not like him teaching me the Bible, but it's really him like just
Deprogramming
again
you?
yeah, kind of
Yeah.
deprogramming in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so that, because again, I think it's very important to understand. I think there's two parts in deprogramming from this group. It's understanding like all the physical stuff that the church tries to hide, and
Mhm.
then you got all the why the doctrine is incorrect, because the doctrine is what gets people to come back.
Yeah.
Because every year for Passover, that's when they call people and they're like,
Right.
hey, come and keep the
That's
Passover.
true.
And that's, yeah, and that's, I mean, you were a deaconess, so I'm sure you had a list of people you had to call, you know, every spring and say, hey, come back to the church, here's Passover. And Passover was like, you know, the day that, because like they always took pictures on Passover, because that's the day where the church was the most filled, or they had to like rent out like a bigger space, because that's where most people would come, and then you wouldn't see them again until the next Passover.
That is
So
so
Passover,
mentally messed up though, because people are trying to get out and get deprogrammed, and then we were sending like postcards and stuff to their houses, like come
yeah,
to Passover,
or even going to their houses,
right? We would go visit
or
them at their houses.
or where they work.
But you know what? They never came to visit me. They didn't want me to keep Passover.
Yeah, they actually,
they did the opposite.
well, for me, for me, it's kind of a little bit creepy. What they did was, because they didn't know where I lived, because I had just moved, but they knew where my sister lived, and she lived in an apartment complex. And so so before they came to my work, they had tried to find, they didn't know which apartment was my sister's, they just knew the apartment complex. So they were driving around looking for my car.
Oh my
And I was like,
gosh.
yeah.
Did they find you?
Yeah, they found me at work.
Yeah, they are relentless. But
Yeah,
I
mean,
was one
that's
of
what they'll
those,
do.
like, you know, we've been
Oh,
those
me
people
too.
that are out there searching and, you know, knocking on doors and
Yeah,
trying to save their soul. So it's like, you know,
yeah,
you understand why they're
yeah,
doing what they're doing, and you also understand why they're making those awful comments. But at the same time, they are
yeah.
so awful and it is so hurtful. So
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
you
I
know,
get more mad at the comments that are negative about the other people,
right.
than about myself, because I'm like for me, it honestly, like if they say something to me, like it honestly does not affect me. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
But the ones that really do make me angry are when they say something negative about Jordan, or they say something negative about, you know, Jeremy, or anybody else.
Right.
Those are the ones that really make me mad.
It's rude. I don't like
And
that.
what's also what is triggering, I would say the most triggering thing is when we would do live videos,
Right.
and a member would come on and they do that whole like, oh my gosh, the whole like, thanks to Father and Mother for allowing me to come on and speak the truth, or something like that. I'm like, oh my God, this is so fake.
Yeah.
Like, I know why they're doing it. I know the programs do it, but I'm like, oh my God, this is so fake.
It's like
And
it's like robotic.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
kind
and
of scary.
another thing though that has really gotten me is when current members will pretend to be former members and reach out to me
Oh, has
Do
that
they
happened?
do
to get
that?
like, yes, absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. I had and I'm pretty good at detecting like if somebody's really legit or not. Like I had one person reach out to me and they said, I'm a former member, I want to talk. um and then so I was like, oh, okay. And then they told me that they were from the Roman Catholic Church.
Tuh.
And I was like, wait a minute. Oh,
Yeah,
that was the
nobody
biggest,
says
that was the
that.
biggest. Nobody what Catholic people do you know that says I'm from the Roman Catholic Church? Nobody, right?
For
Who
sure.
says Roman Catholic Church?
Oh, the
Church that we belong to, right?
right.
They say it like that.
There's
And so,
definitely certain giveaways, like in their speech
yeah,
mannerisms, that would give them away. Well, that is
yeah.
really rude for them to do that. Like
Well,
to
so they
pose
did
as
that,
a
and
former member, that is so rude.
yeah. Yeah, and I called them out on it
Manipulative.
too. I called them out on it, and they kept messaging me, and I blocked them. And then they came on one of the lives, and they were putting, because you guys can't, because our lives are done through Zoom, so like the people watching can't see the Zoom chat. But like the guy kept the guy was on there and he was muted, but he kept putting into the Zoom chat. He says, Kelsey, why did you block me? Why don't you answer my messages? I'm a former member. And so I was like, there's this at the time, that was the only person I had blocked. And so I was like, oh well, and I said it on the air. And then of course he put in the Zoom chat, all hail, and then the church name. So I was like, yep, knew you
Wow.
remember.
Oh my gosh.
So
And did
you were
you
like,
see
I
the
told you.
That's harassment. Stuff like that is
uh
harassing. And when you're trying to deprogram and get your, you know, all you're doing is just
well,
trying to
it's
help people
and it's just it's Yes, all I'm trying to do is help people, and I'll talk to people. I don't even care if they're in the church and they want to
Right.
talk. But the fact that they have to like do something sneaky like that,
Right.
really, I'm not going to help somebody that's sneaky like that.
Right. You're like,
And
I'm
so,
open and being honest, so you should be open
yeah,
and honest also. And if you're the true church, why do you need to do those things?
yeah, and that's not the only one I've had people like I know who have left the church, and I like they would call me and they would say like that I'm done, that they're done with the church, that they just need somebody to talk to. I would listen to them. One of the people, I even went to a group, what is it, like a group, not kind of like a group therapy session, but it's not therapy, it's like just like a a group of former cult members talking.
Oh, like a
And
support
so
group.
yeah, kind of like a support group, because that person had really wanted to go, and
Mm.
I was like, okay, I'll go to support you. And then she was like messaging me on the side saying, can you ask this question, this question? So I was like, okay. And then a few months passed by and I didn't hear from her, so I was like, hey, just checking in, seeing how you're doing, because this person was having a really tough time. Really tough time. And so I was just checking in, and this person didn't respond. And then I had found out later that they got sucked back into the church.
Wow.
And not only that, but when I had contacted them, and I knew that, and so I messaged this person. I said, hey, like, if you went back to the church, that's totally fine. I'm still here if you need anybody to listen to. Hope you're doing well. Just like that, right? I was just gonna leave it like that. And if she wanted to contact me again, she can contact me again. But then I found out she told the church.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, okay, like, if this person needs help, they could ask somebody else now.
Yeah.
Right.
And so,
Or she
I
can
hope.
reach out when she's ready.
Yeah, so so like, and that wasn't the first time. Even before this person had left, I was talking to this person while they were still in the church, and at that time, like, a rumor came out about me in the church that I was trying to break up marriages. Because I was trying to break up marriages, and I messaged her. I said, this is absolutely false. This is what happened. Here's all the messages that I sent through. And then she was like, well, why don't you just talk to the missionary? Maybe he doesn't know. I was like, I'm not talking to the missionary. He just made up rumors about me and told other people.
Right.
I want you to know that this is fake. And then she went and told the missionary.
Wow.
And so I was like, that should have been the first red flag. But then she left, and then she went back to the church, and I was like, okay, she's, she needs help. She can ask somebody else.
It's so hard. And I think it's so common to go back because,
and when you go back, how do you get in good graces? By snitching on the people that helped you.
Right.
Tony
and I tried to predict some of the rumors that they might start about her when we started doing this.
So
we
we'll
thought,
see
like,
what
I wonder what they'll say, and then we came up with a few. We're like, they could probably twist this and this and this. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I can only imagine that. I don't know everything they've said about me, but I know a good portion. But I know, like, when I had left, right as I was leaving the church, like, I had just it was right after the autumn feast, and during that time, Lindsay, we have to be there at like 5 a.m., 8 p.m. every single day.
Ugh.
And then, on Sabbath day, we're gonna be there all day. And like, it took like a really big mental toll on me, that last one I kept. And I, like, on the last and greatest day of the Feast of Tabernacles, I went to the doctor after the 5 a.m. service, because like, I literally felt like I was gonna like pass out. Like, that's what I felt like. And the doctor's like, well, what were you doing? And I was like, I've been at church every single day. She's like, no, that's extremely unhealthy. And I said, you don't understand.
Wow.
And so she gave me some, a prescription for anxiety medicine. And I had started taking it, but like, when I took it, like, because I don't usually take medication, so like, that one kind of like, my mind was like convincing myself that something was going wrong. And so, like, I told some of the members that I was like, the doctor gave me this, I've been taking it. So they knew, some of them knew that I was taking anxiety medicine. So I'm sure they probably
use that.
Use that. Because they were definitely, at first, they were definitely telling members that I was sick. That's why I wasn't showing up.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I
so,
had
but
to get on anti-anxiety medication also afterwards.
yeah.
But you know what? A church should not cause that kind of anxiety.
It
You
was, I
know?
mean,
It's
yeah, it
supposed
was,
to, church is supposed to make you feel good and make you feel better, and instead it just leaves us with all these like PTSD symptoms.
yeah, yeah. And it
But
was like, it was brutal,
yeah.
brutal.
Well, I think you guys are awesome rock stars for being where you are now.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything you did, all the videos and like
No,
for being brave, and like even though they were like even on those lives they would, sometimes be rude and stuff, and you guys were always like so calm, and like it just really proved, which one was real and which one wasn't. You know what I mean?
did you see the one where we got hacked?
No.
Oh man,
I
there
don't.
was one. There was one where this is where because like towards the. I mean, we haven't done a live for a while, but
Right.
this was when Jordan was posting the link publicly, and anybody could join. Jordan was still the gatekeeper and allowing people into the room, but
Mm.
I mean, he was allowing anybody into the room. So we had one of the uh, pretty prominently known former members in
Mm.
the chat, one who has like open litigation with them, and she was on the call, and as soon as she popped into the call, chaos just broke loose. I
Mm.
mean, the one person turned on their video. This was, I think, I can't, I can't say with 100% certainty this was someone from the church,
Mm.
but it's very, very coincidental that as soon as she popped up, that's when craziness happened.
Mm.
Um, like someone came on, like had a background of like a big naked guy, and
Uh,
was like just saying like all like, show us your stuff.
Kelsey,
oh, like weird
Kelsey,
sex stuff?
Yeah. It was
And it just popped
no,
up like.
it was yeah, it was very. Yes, they popped. I mean, Jordan, banned him pretty quick, but
Yeah.
I mean, so ever
the
since then,
heck? Is this
yeah, he
still
could.
on Facebook or on
Yes, it's on.
YouTube?
Yes, I don't remember. It's one of the live videos. I
We'll have
don't
to watch them.
remember
I
which one
like
it
those
is.
ones.
Is there a way that you would want to send us a link to that, or do you want us to keep that off?
Yeah, no, I can. No, I can.
Can we add that to the show
That'd be
notes?
funny. I want to
I think
see.
for people
Yeah,
who want to watch it, and then they can also
yeah,
get a kind of a sense of you and Jordan's like live
Like
videos.
Great Light Studios and
yeah.
Yeah,
Jordan and all that. Actually,
if you're
Jordan's going to be
comfortable
our
with that.
next guest, so that's going to be really exciting to
Yeah.
talk to him.
If you don't
Yeah,
mind us putting that link on there, I think people would probably
yeah.
enjoy seeing that because
I gotta
that's
find which
crazy.
one it
That's
is.
totally what happened.
Jeez.
Allegedly.
Yeah,
Does that make
yeah. Well, I
Allegedly.
mean,
allegedly?
it obviously was not a church member in there because I highly doubt a church member would show their face.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's very, very coincidental. And also, like Great Light Studios, I mean, like I think you have to really be looking for them to find them.
Yeah.
Right.
I think because I think their community is, Christian based and then WMS
Right.
based.
Yeah.
So unless you're looking, you're probably not going to find it. So like the very moment she comes on that this happens, it's highly coincidental. But again, I can't prove it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But see, these tactics are all used to, scare people from speaking out and, from connecting.
Well,
It's just
they
so
also
unfortunate.
they also subpoenaed Zoom and YouTube to get a copy of all recordings that we've done.
Oh,
Right.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I
And
mean, obviously YouTube was like, no way.
yeah.
And we made a video with a lawyer about that one. But I mean, yeah, that's the kind of stuff because like that's the kind of stuff that they do to try to silence people. I
They're
mean,
like,
that's
we
why.
Mhm.
have billions of dollars. We don't give a F. We're just gonna
Yeah,
come after you. We don't
Right.
care
because
about the cost.
I mean, how many? I mean, we people put so much money into this church. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like they have money to waste,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
so like that's why they'll, I mean, I'm not just saying them in particular, but organizations with that kind of money, what
Yeah.
they'll do they try to silence people. They scare people with litigation to keep them silent and to take down their stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Donald Trump.
so
Yeah.
a lot of people, a lot of organizations do that.
Yeah.
Even like Dave Ramsey does stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's that's why a lot of people are afraid to speak out because they don't want to get sued.
Yeah.
And so that's initially what made me afraid to speak out. And I can't even say with certainty that I'm still not afraid.
Yeah.
But you know,
But to
for
like,
me,
what point do you feel like at some point you go, I'm not gonna say anything that's not true, that I couldn't just like prove or point to, or like it's very openly true.
Right.
yeah, I mean that's why I try to say frequently that this, you know, my opinion, my experience, because I mean even within the church, my experience is not necessarily the same as somebody else's.
Right.
And so yeah, you know, my experience, my opinion, and that's also why, you know, I try to stay a lot more towards the doctrine portion,
Yeah.
because they can't sue me for saying, you know, Passover is not the way to eternal life.
Right. Right.
You know, but
Yeah, and the more that you guys all hear from each other, though, I think is how you're piecing it together that like this stuff done is intentional, because across the country,
It's
you
interesting though
guys all have a
because
similar
right, even though we all have
Yeah.
our own story, right? It's like we all have the same exact story. And we're
yeah.
all over the country and we're all over the world and we're having the same
Well,
stories.
the church does tell people that we talk and I mean, this is again from my experience, what I've been told is that the church tells people that we get together and you know, we tell each other what to say, kind
Oh,
of thing.
fascinating.
And that's why all our stories sound the
Well,
same.
for the
Really?
record,
Oh my gosh, that's
for the
weird.
record, we've
Yeah.
never talked to Kelsey like on the phone or anything.
Yeah, this is the first time we're speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so
That's
interesting.
fascinating.
I never heard that.
I didn't know that.
That's not
Yeah.
true, by the way.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Most
Yeah.
of us, we didn't even know each other when we first started talking. Like, I saw Jeremy's video, but I didn't know Jeremy. Like, you
Right.
know, a lot of us didn't talk until after the video came out, or after each person's videos come out, and then we get a hold of it. That's how we get a hold of each other. We'll post on their comment on their video.
Right,
And that's why
right.
their only defense is to attack that,
Yeah.
which they can't because we live in America.
Yeah. Freedom of speech,
Yeah,
baby.
and so
Yeah.
freedom of speech. Well, freedom of speech is, you know, a blessing and a curse, because freedom of speech
Right.
also, freedom of
Allows
speech, freedom
them.
of religion, yeah, allows
Right.
cults to thrive.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so it's, yeah, their rumors are just, they're ridiculous.
That's fascinating.
And you know, one thing that I had heard that I thought was pretty, when I did go to that one group therapy session with the person who left,
Yeah.
the guy leading it, he said something pretty profound to me. He said, you know, most people do not stay in cults forever. Eventually, most people will leave. And that's maybe that's another thing I want to tell members who are still there, is that most people will leave. It's just they have to leave on their, really, people have to leave on their own.
Yeah.
They have to be ready themselves. It's not really going to be, you know, it's not always, you know, us just showing a whole bunch of evidence.
Right.
It's, you know, leaving the evidence out there and they can see it on their own, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how we feel about this podcast. Like, we don't really feel like we need to promote it or like spread it all over, because we just feel like when people are ready and they need it, it'll be here for them.
Yeah.
And they can come find it if they need it. Like, we don't feel this need to be like, let's like blast it on this website and do this and do this and do this. We're like, it's here. When people are looking for it, they'll find it.
Yeah, and
You
I
know,
think people, like, that's what helps people leave, is they start to do the research on their own.
Hmm.
They might not, maybe not necessarily about the church specifically, but about maybe cults and other groups. And I know that's, you know, that's helped a lot of people too.
Yeah.
Right. Because you think that your experience is so unique and you think you're the true church, but then when you look at the Unification Church and you look at, you know, the Branch Davidians and you look at all the different ones and their doctrines are all so similar to what we believed, you're like, what?
Yes.
It's so
Well,
interesting.
but not only their doctrines, but their, like, group dynamics
Right.
are so
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, when, like, for example, when you think about, like, the Jim Jones cult, right? The People's Temple, like, that, okay, so, like, I'm not saying our church was anything like them, or that our church would ever do anything like them. I just want to say that first. But any high demand group has the possibility of reaching that level, really.
Yes.
And so, like, all they have to, I mean, what's an occasion where everybody drinks and eats the same thing? You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying they would do that, but I'm saying given enough time and power and, you know, depending on how the dynamic shifts, any high demand group, and that is maybe not even religion, you know, specific, but any high demand group has the ability to be like that. Because I can tell you right now, when I was a member, anything that God the Mother said to eat or drink, I would have done it.
Oh, for sure.
Anything she said to do, I would have done it.
Yeah.
Like if I were in that Kate, like I would have done those things.
Yeah.
You know.
Totally.
And so that's a scary part of like these high demand groups or cults, is that like people are there's you know, I wouldn't say necessarily everybody within the group, but I would say a lot of people within the group would be willing to do whatever the leader says.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful and scary dynamic.
Yeah.
Look at all the crazy things they made us do. They made us do flash mobs in the mall.
Oh my gosh, I was so happy that, because my church was too small, my Zion was too small, so they made us learn the dance, but we didn't actually have to do it. But yeah, I mean, how
Tony sent me one of the videos. Have you seen the video that Tony sent about the like choreographed dance? It's like international to all of the countries.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, they made us. You know what? Because they posted it on YouTube, and I remember they made us go. They told all of us to go to YouTube and watch it 7 times a day.
Oh my gosh.
We had to practice so much. It was strict. It was real.
Yeah. It was like, it was real. It was embarrassing.
But it's like it's so interesting being out of it, because you're continuously doing all these culty things, but you're like telling yourself that you're not in a cult. But you know what I mean? You're just so disconnected from reality, you know, and
that like so it's such a big deal that you have to practice this like dance move.
Yeah, it's so silly.
For this YouTube
you're like,
video.
I can't go to work today. I got to practice this video.
Yeah.
This dance, you know.
That's fascinating.
So weird.
Yeah.
I mean, watching it from my end, it's a hilarious video.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so cringy.
It is hilarious.
Yeah, I think Tony, when you had sent it, like I watched it again and I was like, oh my god, this is so embarrassing.
So
what the other people must have thought.
Yeah, so funny. All right, well, you know, we could talk forever. We could talk all day.
Sure.
We're gonna have you back on soon. We're gonna have a good,
if you'd like. It's up to you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, of course.
Well, you're coming back on, Kelsey.
Of course.
We'll be our friend.
Just tell me when and where, and I'll be there.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Like, we got something cooking. In hopefully a few weeks. So that'll be a fun one to have a kind of a group chat with a bunch of us. So thank you so much. Your story was.
Oh, thank you.
Is there anything you want to throw out there, like anywhere people can reach you, or?
Just well, where can they reach me? Yeah, you can just send me an email.
Yeah. And her videos are on YouTube.
We'll post the link to that one video that got hacked. I want to watch that.
Me
so
too.
Send that to us. Send us that.
I'll tell you the timestamp. I'm pretty sure it's like
that's a good
video.
Yeah. But those videos are all very interesting. I recommend you guys watch them. They're really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll send you my email if you want to post my email.
If you're comfortable with that, if you want to put it on there, okay.
Yeah, I have one email for this purpose.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So I don't mind giving this one out.
Awesome.
It's kw1710@yahoo.com. So I'll send it to you guys.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
All right. Have a great day. We'll see you. We'll talk to you in hopefully a week or two.
So you want to say the last boom baby for us?
Boom, baby.
Bye, boom baby. Boom babe. I said boom babe.
Did it work?
No.